The majority of the time when I get a call of people moving to the Quad Cities, it goes something like this.
Hey, I'm moving to the Quad Cities. I want to be in Bettendorf.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people want to move to Bettendorf, but it's not perfect. And this video is going to cover the worst things about Bettendorf, Iowa, and some of them actually may surprise you. So let's dive right in. What is some of the worst things about Bettendorf, Iowa? The first thing I want to discuss is the public transportation here in Bettendorf and or the lack of public transportation. Yes, we do have public transportation via the bus system, but here's the thing about it. It's fairly limited and you have to live pretty close to one of the bus stops to even make it make sense to utilize. The routes don't really get you a lot of different places, and it's surprising to people when they move here because the Quad Cities is somewhat of a larger city here, but Bettendorf is still only sitting at about 40,000 people, and the bus system kind of reflects that. Now, I'm not saying that the bus system isn't well received, and it's actually fairly nice. The bus stops are fairly new. It's just that it's kind of limited on where it can get you, what time it can get you there. And some people have complained about that because more than likely they're going to have to use a car when they get here. So it ups the cost of transporting yourself around. But if you know that going in and you already have a car, it's probably not that big a deal. But if you're relying on public transportation and you're moving to Bettendorf, just know it's going to be a little bit limited, and it's going to be limited on where you can get and what times you can get there. And speaking of transporting yourself, what do you need in order to transport yourself? No matter if it's public transportation or private, you're going to need roads. Now, I would argue that the roads in Bettendorf are some of the best, but there's a catch with that. If you want the best, a lot of times you're going to have to do construction on them. And Bettendorf is absolutely insane with the amount of construction that happens on the roads. Yes, we have some of the best roads here in Bettendorf, but the road construction is seemingly constant. I swear there was 2 years in a row where one of our main arteries, Middle Road, seemed to go under construction 2 years in a row. I don't know how that even happens, if they messed something up or what, but I remember distinctly there was 2 years during the summer where Middle Road was closed down or shut down or detoured in some kind of fashion. Now that's all taken care of. It's been great the last couple of years as far as Middle Road goes, but that doesn't mean that there's no road construction anywhere else. It is constant and it is apparent, but again, the good comes with the bad. And if you have their construction, that means the roads are being maintained and taken care of. And I do appreciate that, especially if you have a nicer car. You don't want to be hitting potholes all the time. So you gotta take the good with the bad. And that's just something to expect if you're moving to Bettendorf, Iowa. Now, if you're moving to Bettendorf and you're like, yes, I absolutely want to be in Bettendorf, just know that one of the downfalls of Bettendorf when it comes to the Quad Cities is that its home prices are much higher than other places on the average. That's not to say that there isn't more affordable options within Bettendorf, but because everybody seems to want to move to Bettendorf, that makes competition higher and inventory lower, which drives up the prices all over. So you're moving here, just be prepared to fight for the homes that are available and be prepared to probably pay more than some other locations in the Quad Cities because of that competition and all the people wanting to move here. So what does the average cost of a home in Bettendorf look like? Well, that depends. If you're in Bettendorf proper, you're probably looking at about $300 to $350. But if you're looking at the south part of Bettendorf, you're probably looking into the lower 200s. If you're looking at the northern part of Bettendorf, you're looking at 4 or 5, maybe even 600,000. Yes, they get higher than that in Bettendorf, but in general, it's going to be around that 300 mark because of the averages and how they balance out. But here's the thing, there is more affordable options in Bettendorf. You just got to know where to look. And if you're moving to Bettendorf and you are like, I absolutely have to be in there, Well, give me a call. My number is popping up down below. I am a real estate agent here in the city of Bettendorf, and I'd love to help you out and find that perfect home for you. So my number is there. Give me a call. I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, and text messages. Now, right back into what are the worst things about Bettendorf? Well, one of the worst things about Bettendorf is the constant development. Now, that could be a pro, but it's also a con. It's kind of like when I talked about the road constructions. You gotta take the good with the bad. And what is the bad of all the development? Well, it's the construction once again. You look at the places that are being developed. You got downtown Bettendorf. You have the big, Bridges apartment complex that went up. You have the TPK apartments that went up. You have the bridge that was under construction. You have a bunch of different things going on down there, and every time they decide to build something new, it affects others. So you have the roads getting shut down. They may not be under construction themselves, but they have detours and stuff to accommodate the construction of those sites. It blocks walking paths. It does all sorts of different things. But the other big development area is the TPK Bank. And that one was a big one because the infrastructure they had to build around that along with the roads, and they just got that kind of wrapped up, but I know they have plans to kind of tear it up again because more and more stuff are getting built. The Iron T just got built up there. That was a big deal as far as rerouting people around that construction site because it's such a huge facility. It really needed to have a wide berth in where you could and couldn't go. So again, you get the good with the bad, but we're just kind of going through that time period in Bettendorf where things are getting built quickly and built in a way that is trying to not, disturb people's lives, but with the best efforts, they still have disruption of other places and places you can go and not go. So one thing I find kind of interesting about Bettendorf in the Quad Cities is we have the duality of Illinois versus Iowa and then the different cities. And the specific thing I'm talking about is we get a lot of Illinois people moving to Iowa because of the property taxes. But the thing that I find funny about that is if you look at property taxes on the state level, Iowa doesn't really rank super high as far as low property taxes. It's just lower than Illinois on the average. And in Bettendorf, you kind of see an interesting piece of that. The property taxes are higher, not necessarily because of the percentage though. So this is the catch. The property taxes are typically higher because the prices of the homes are higher. But if you look at the percentage, Bettendorf is actually one of the cheaper options when it comes to property taxes because Bettendorf City tries to keep those taxes lower and borrow money from a capital standpoint to do all those road construction and development going on. But when you're looking at the actual dollars, a lot of times those property taxes are higher because the price of the home is higher. So again, take the good with the bad. Yes, property taxes as a percentage are lower in Bettendorf compared to the other cities of the Quad Cities, but because the prices of homes are higher, the dollar amount you pay can be a little bit higher. And again, this is specific to whatever home you decide to get into, so it's something you want to take a look at when moving to Bettendorf. Now, something I find very interesting about Bettendorf, and I noticed right away when I moved here, was all the cul-de-sacs that are around. It's like a cul-de-sac hell in a way because all the neighborhoods seem to have the design of cul-de-sacs with very few through roads. And if you're moving here and you're trying to get around, you're probably going to get lost. In fact, when I first moved here, my mom came and visited me, and one of her favorite activities is garage sailing, and as an extension, I enjoy garage sailing myself. So we're driving around, going to these garage sales, and we get into the cul-de-sac city, as in Bettendorf, and sometimes we were getting lost as we were trying to get around. Now, I know the neighborhoods really well, and I don't typically get lost anymore, but back when I first moved here, I just noticed the complexity of all the cul-de-sacs, all the dead ends that are within the neighborhoods, and I just found it very odd. But again, I grew up in a small town where cul-de-sacs weren't really a thing, and moving to Bettendorf, well, cul-de-sacs are just everywhere, and it's just a different structure of the neighborhood that I wasn't really used to. But just know, moving here, if you're moving to the neighborhoods of Bettendorf, there's a good chance there's going to be cul-de-sacs everywhere, and if you're not very good at navigating, you may get lost. Now, with all of the development here in Bettendorf, the one thing that is lacking, and I find kind of absurd that we don't have, is the lack of a large entertainment venue. And what I mean, so over in Moline, just across the river, we have the Vibrant Arena, which is a giant facility for hosting concerts, events like Monster Truck Rally, the rodeo, ice hockey, that sort of thing. And in Bettendorf, we just don't really have anything like that. Davenport, they have the Riverbend Stadium, which is where the baseball is. They have the Figge Art Museum, where bigger events can take place. And then they have the downtown, which is hosted the Big 7, the Festival of Trees, the St. Patrick's Day Parade, just larger scale things. And in Bettendorf, there really isn't a great place for that. And there really isn't, that I know of, plans to bring in an event center similar to that. Yes, we have the Betplex, which I've talked about in other stories or other videos, where they bring in tournaments, so baseball, soccer, volleyball. They have all sorts of different events and tournaments going on, but it's not really like a concert hall or anything like that. So there is a lack of that in Bettendorf, and some people just cannot stand it. But here's the thing, Bettendorf is in the Quad Cities. Those places are not terribly far away. The Moline one, literally across the river, 5 minutes from Bettendorf. The Davenport facilities, again, 10-15 minutes to get to that if you're driving. It's not terrible, but you know, it would be nice if Bettendorf had a larger facility like that a lot of people would bring in to the community. So just know, if you're moving here, that is a little bit lacking in that area. Now, we may not have a big entertainment venue, but a lot of people are still wanting to move here. And if that's you and you want to know which neighborhood is specifically the best for you and your family, well, my number is popping up down below. I'd love to help you out, and I am the one that answers all those phone calls, emails, text messages. But if you're just curious what Bettendorf looks like, well, check out this video right here, where I take you on a tour of the entire city of Bettendorf, Iowa.